You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Reynolds, the owner of Summer Properties Northwest, Reynolds & Kline Appraisal, and your host of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Was texting, just had lunch here not too long ago, was texting with my friends Brian and Mike from high school. Eddie Van Halen from Van Halen passed away. Passed away at 65 from cancer. Super sad news for the rock world. A lot of our listeners and viewers are in the 50 to 60-year-old age category. If you grew up in the 70s, you listen to Van Halen. That's what you listen to. My favorite Eddie Van Halen song, probably Ice Cream Man, but you got to throw in Running with the Devil and You Really Got Me, and probably Eruption, followed up by Hot for Teacher. Those are my favorite Van Halen songs that featured Eddie Van Halen. Guy was epic. Rest in peace, Eddie. On to more bad news, in my opinion. So we've got some kind of breaking news that I haven't spent a ton of time on. But the highlight is Trump rejects Democrats' COVID-19 stimulus offer, says no deal until after the election. Pelosi says White House in complete disarray. So we've had this ongoing drama of, will we get a second stimulus package? Will we not? Now we know we won't get one for probably at least a month. And a lot of what I've been talking about is that there are folks out there who could really use some stimulus right now. Now, granted, these negotiations have been going on for months, right? We just have been. I think the House started off at somewhere, it was at over $3 billion or $3 trillion, something like that. And the Senate was, what were they, like a trillion? They're so far off in numbers that it was just crazy. So Trump has basically said, yep, we're not doing that after the election, after I win. And we're going to focus on the Supreme Court Justice nominee, getting that squared away instead. So let's take a look. This time, I don't spend a lot of time reading USA Today because it's what I kind of consider light news, if there is such a thing, kind of just like, People Magazine, USA Today. But this is such kind of a breaking news, and I wanted to get this podcast recorded as soon as I could, because I know a lot of people are looking at it going, oh, what's the deal there? And it's a topic that we should cover, because I do talk about it a lot here on the Seattle Real Estate Podcast from the standpoint of getting small business some additional aid, getting people who are unemployed, who have been in the service industry, whatever, who are out of work, getting them some additional income, some additional funds so that they can make ends meet. And a lot of the eviction stuff that we talk about here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast all is kind of entwined together. And we've had these talks going on the second stimulus package, and I know it's been rocky, but it felt like it was getting a little bit closer there. And then boom, now we're done. Let's take a look and see what we can figure out. All right, so we know that Trump rejected the House's most recent kind of proposal. President Donald Trump put an end to months of negotiations over a COVID-19 stimulus package Tuesday, rejecting the Democrats' latest offer and saying he wanted to postpone negotiations until after the November election. In a Tuesday afternoon tweet, Trump said, "Isn't it interesting that we get stuff out by Twitter now? That is how we get our news. Twitter, of all things, social media, Twitter." In a Tuesday afternoon tweet, Trump said Democrats were not negotiating in good faith. He told Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican Kentucky, to instead focus full-time on confirming Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. "I've instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election, when, immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill that focuses on hardworking Americans and small business," Trump tweeted. I wonder how that went down with his advisors. I wonder what they said. Did they come up with this plan? I don't know. There's some stuff behind the scenes here that we will never know, that I would love to know. It's like, how did that conversation go? Yeah, you know what? We're just going to stop negotiations, even though America probably needs this package and they can probably use it. We've got all these negotiations that are all over the board. Given both sides, I think the House is way off, way high. They've got a Christmas wish list. But I also think the Republicans are low. And I think, there should have been more give on both sides, but whatever. Clearly that's not happening. But this is just where we're at right now, right? And I am just reporting the news, so don't crush me in the comments. But this is where we are at. President's rejection and insistence on restarting negotiations after November 3rd, the election, means both parties head into a crucial election without more relief for Americans struggling as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, which has led to unprecedented levels of unemployment and caused businesses to suffer as states impose social distancing measures. Now, the small business owners that I know have not been... They're not in a position where they're like, yep, I really need this stimulus to get here. Otherwise, I am going to fold. The businesses that are still left standing, and there's a small percentage of businesses that I know, that I personally know, that have gone under, have decided to call it quits. And I'm not going to say a lot, but a number of those were kind of on the precipice before, meaning when we had super low unemployment and the economy was roaring and things were really going, those businesses were kind of, maybe not as solid as they could have been just to begin with. And then when you add in all the restrictions from coronavirus and just the shutdowns from March and April, those are the businesses that are out of business. They couldn't make it. And I think we are going to see over the next 30 days, you're going to see a second round of businesses, kind of that second wave of, all right, we held out this long, and nobody in business right now is like, all right, I can make it if I get the stimulus package, if I get a second round of stimulus. That is kind of not where businesses are. I think a lot of individuals are on that basis, but business owners that I know and talk to, they are not there because everybody can kind of see from the negotiations, both sides are so far apart right now. Literally, I think at last look, they were $6 billion apart, $600 billion apart. We were 1.6 and 2.2 trillion is where we're at. So a difference of $600 billion. That's a big difference. So we were kind of grinding it out, had some ebb and flow in these negotiations, but now we're out, or apparently we're out. This is the Twitter news that we know right now, all right? In a statement, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Trump had put his interest above the country's and said he was unwilling to crush the virus. Stimulus package, crushing the virus, little disjointed, but I know there was some money in there for the virus. I can't remember specifically what it was, but I'm pretty sure down below in the article we'll figure that out. Clearly, the White House is in complete disarray, she said. All right. Hours before Trump spiked talks, I love the term spiked. I've seen that in a number of the stories, meaning he just took the talks and spiked them on the ground. We're done. Hours before Trump spiked talks, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell urged Congress to pass more stimulus relief, saying inadequate support would weaken recovery from the coronavirus recession. I do believe that is true. Markets, which have been bolstered by the hopes of a stimulus deal, plunged after Trump's announcement. The Dow Jones tumbled by about 350 points after rising about 200 points early on expectations for an agreement, while the Standard & Poor's 500 index was down about 1.2%. It'll be interesting to see what the stock market does tomorrow, right? I'll be watching the futures tonight, see what goes on, because a lot of times that's a really good indicator of where are we headed for tomorrow's open. It used to be that without all this news, this on-demand news, you would just have to wake up and watch the TV in the morning, and this is before CNN and CNBC. You just had to watch your local news station to see if you could catch a glimpse of what the Dow was doing. That's what you did. You didn't have all this 24/7 stuff. Now I'm just sounding like an old guy, which I am, but hey, here we are on the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Oh, and we have merch. The Seattle Real Estate Podcast on YouTube. Is that correct, Arian? On YouTube? Merch on YouTube. We have a cool sticker. We've got a coffee cup. Do we have a t-shirt? No t-shirt. Look on our YouTube channel, Summit Properties Northwest, and our merch is there. And this is not an enormous money-making effort. It is an option we have. We're a tiny little bit above our cost, just so I can cover my guys. This isn't a big moneymaker. It's just something kind of fun that if people want to buy it, great. If they don't, I guess it's what all the YouTubers and all the podcasters do. They have merch. So buy some merch. We'll be ordering some from our own store, and I'll show that here. But or I'll describe it on the podcast. How's that? Back to the story. The president ended negotiations the day after he returned to the White House Monday evening after spending 3 days at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. I wonder how much of this is, let's throw a news story out there and we'll get off the whole coronavirus thing, the president being in the hospital. What do you think about that? Kind of a distraction. I know I've been in the hospital, but we're going to do this. Yeah, this news pretty much takes precedent, doesn't it? I mean, he just got out of the hospital, yesterday? I think yesterday at like 6:30. President Trump faced heavy criticism Monday for telling Americans not to fear the virus, saying, "Don't let it dominate your life." I don't know. He's got it. I think he has a right to kind of say what he wants. Don't let it dominate your life. But it kind of has dominated our life, and that part sucks. And a lot of the decisions that have dominated our lives are outside of our hands. Okay, you got to wear a mask. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't go to a bar after 10 p.m. You can't go to the gym. Can't get your hair cut. A lot of stuff that has dominated our life, whether we choose to or not. That's what I have a problem with. All right. Trump's announcement comes as many of the benefits previously approved by Congress in the spring have run out. I think they've all run out, except the PPP still has, $165 billion in reserves. We just didn't tap it out. The $600 federal boost to unemployment benefits stopped in end of July. A loan forgiveness program for small businesses also expired, the PPP, and airlines have warned of mass layoffs and furloughs after their billions of dollars in federal payroll assistance expired. Airlines, cruise industry, travel industry, they are going to need some help. They are decimated. They will not be able to hold themselves together just on goodwill and good faith long term. They're going to need some help. They're going to need a massive federal bailout. So expect to see that. After negotiations fell apart in August, President Donald Trump issued several executive orders aimed at providing relief. Negotiations stalemated as both sides remained unable to agree on issues like the amount of the federal boost to unemployment insurance and state and local funding. Republicans said the unemployment benefit could work as a disincentive to working if it were too much money. And I have heard that a lot, and I've actually seen that in action. I've had my kids tell me that their friends, that guy's making more money now than he was when he was working. And it's like, that is just wrong. I get the numbers, but also what I explain to my kids is that, mainly my younger one, is that even though that guy is making more money, sitting on his rear end, playing Xbox, he doesn't have a job to come back to because right now he's unemployed. So his work situation is tenuous at best because it doesn't exist. Since Brennan, my son, you are working, keep going and don't look for stimulus to make this happen for you. Don't quit your job. Don't look for unemployment if you get fired. I mean, just don't look to get fired kind of thing or whatever. Keep working is the bottom line. That's basically what I told him. Keep working. This will be over soon. Your buddy won't have his stimulus to fall back on. And guess what? That is not a long-term plan. It probably looks pretty cool for every day of the week he sits at home and plays Xbox. That's not where you want to be. That's not going to get you ahead. You just got to head down, keep going. Don't worry about what other people are doing. So both sides also had deadlocked over the amount of aid to give to state and local governments as well, because we all know state and local governments are going to need an enormous bailout at some point here because the revenue streams that they would typically rely upon when businesses are open didn't happen for a good portion of the first quarter of quarter two. Not happening. I did a podcast yesterday on City of Seattle and how they're handling their budget because they are working on their 2021 budget right now, and it's not pretty. And with the whole defund the police and put money into BIPOC communities, that whole thing. It's kind of a mess. It's like we don't have enough money, but we've committed $100 million to communities of color. I really can't afford it this year, but we told everybody in CHOP that we're going to do that, so that's what we're going with. That's what we're going to do. That's what we got going on in here in Seattle. Just kind of crazy. All right, Republicans were wary of adding to the deficit and say the money would bail out mismanaged local governments. Know what we're talking about there? Talking about governments like Seattle. Mismanaged. Some heavy mismanagement going on right now. Need to get some management in here. Management up in here. Trump's tweet seemed to indicate that the state and local funding provisions of a stimulus deal remained a major sticking point, writing that Democrats wanted money to bail out poorly run high crime. Now, here it is. Democrats wanted money to bail out poorly run, high crime, Democratic states, money that is no way related to COVID-19. That is the argument, right? And I think there was a bunch of that in there. Hey, while we're asking for an enormous multi-trillion-dollar amount, let's just throw this in. Let's throw in $100 billion here, $200 billion there for that. Let's see what we can get. Let's negotiate what we can get. That's what's going on. All right. Democrats seem to have grown more bullish about a deal going into the last weekend. That's how I kind of felt. Is like last weekend. All right, we've got maybe we've got a 50-50 of getting something passed before the election. And then today this happened, and I was just like, okay, yeah, Eddie Van Halen died. And now this, not solid. But what are you going to do? Pelosi said Friday on MSNBC she was optimistic about a deal, saying Trump's positive COVID-19 diagnosis changes the dynamic. She and Stephen Mnuchin, talked Monday as they continue to work through remaining areas of disagreement, but they really still weren't all that close. Pelosi said in a letter to House Democrats Friday that she and Mnuchin were working through 5 main areas of disagreement. Number 1, the dollar amount of the federal boost to unemployment benefits. Okay. You throw out too much money, people are disincentivized to work. You throw out too little, it doesn't really help them. More people are homeless. That whole thing goes sideways. Trying to figure that out. Number 2, funding for school and state and local governments. You don't want to fund those governments that have been bad. Can't have that. That's what we're arguing there. Tax credit provisions for children and families. All right. Testing and contact tracing funding, and appropriations for democratic priorities like transit. So we got that in there. Transit. Is anybody even really going to ride the transit anymore? Is that a thing moving forward? Talking about riding the bus. No, I don't think I'm going to ride the bus. Maybe a light rail system, but just not riding the bus. I'm not a public transit guy anyway because I'm a spoiled old white dude, and I like to drive my car, kind of like everybody else in Seattle. Plus, our transit system sucks here. Terrible. Catching the bus, I got to walk 10 miles, and then I can get on a bus, but then immediately got to transfer to 2 other buses and take me forever. If I'm going to spend money, I'm going to pay for an Uber. That's what I'm going to do. That's my transit. That's my private transit. Plus, you're helping a small independent contractor. Uber. Trump, who had urged Republicans to accept more aid, tweeted in all caps on Saturday, "Our great USA wants and needs stimulus. Work together and get it done." White House negotiators had most recently proposed $1.6 trillion in relief, but Democrats held fast at $2.2 trillion for their plan, leaving the two sides hundreds of billions of dollars apart, roughly $600 billion. That is so much money. We are leveraging the future of our grandchildren's grandchildren by doing this. It's crazy. The amount of money that this entails is enormous. So based on that, if we were super close and Trump did this, I would be like, what? But if you really look at the numbers, we've never really been that close. We're not close on a bunch of stuff here. Can we wait until the election? Yeah, probably. Is it going to be a little bit more painful? Yeah. Is there a little bit more economic damage that's probably going to be done? Yeah, probably. But when you look and see what the stock market did, it's kind of like, all right, if we're a month out, that's not that big of a deal. That's where we're at. It's one of those things where, I was expecting this, but I was going to get it today. I was going to get it same day delivery from Amazon. All right, it's backlogged now, and it's not going to come for another week. Really disappointing, but I guess we're going to have to figure out how to make it go. That's what you do. That's where we're at. All right, so some people would argue, but I can't live without that money. It's like, all right, you're going to have to figure out how to. You're going to have to suck it up and make this work, because those are your options. You either completely give up or you figure it out, dig down, make it happen. That's what we got going on. Trump's stance to end negotiations could be a gamble for both him and congressional Republicans just 4 weeks before Election Day. Senate Republicans hold a 53-47 majority, and polling suggests Democrats have a chance of taking several seats and with it, the majority in the chamber. After the elections of 2016, you know how much emphasis I put on polls? That much. 0. And for you on the podcast, I'm holding up my hands in the symbol of a 0, because I don't follow the polls at all. They were so far off, and our media has skewed anything poll related so hard that I pay no attention. I listen to the people around me, try and get a good feel on what people are thinking from both sides, both Republicans and Democrats, see what's going on, see what's happening with the groundswell, if you would. And I read a bunch of the comments that you guys leave in like the YouTube videos. I do look at those. Sometimes they're really hardcore and it throws my day. But, I am a human being, so I do have feelings, if you want to remember that. I seem like I might not, but I actually do. And so when you tell me to F off, that does become a little bit difficult. Like, all right, I'm providing a podcast and somebody's telling me to F off. That doesn't seem entirely fair, but that's kind of what you get when you are in the public eye, even if it's just on a podcast or YouTube. YouTube trolls are probably the worst, though. They really are. They say just the weirdest stuff. Republicans have for weeks blamed Democratic leadership for the lapse in aid and the impasse over future relief, but now their party's top leadership is publicly spiking his discussions over another bill. There's that spiking. We are taking the ball and throwing it to the ground. Democrats have been feeling the pressure back home. Vulnerable House Democrats, especially those in seats that Trump won in 2016, have repeatedly attempted to sway congressional leadership into coming to a deal and have asked Pelosi to take on smaller bills to tackle some of the immediate priorities, such as unemployment or refueling the small business loan program, a suggestion she opposed. She opposed it because she wants the big ticket. She wants the big picture. She wants the big ticket. Wants the whole meal deal. That's what I'm trying to say. The whole McDonald's meal deal. Supersize me. The big thing. And not little bits and pieces. Because then you lose control and you can't get your whole big thing through. A bipartisan group of moderate lawmakers known as the Problem Solvers Caucus, what a name, the Problem Solvers Caucus, even proposed their own legislation to offer a middle ground in the hopes of fueling negotiations. We'll get something. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Both the Democratic-controlled House and the Republican-controlled Senate have tried to pass their own proposals. Both have failed to advance a bill that would become law. Last week, the House passed a smaller $2.2 trillion relief bill, a scaled-back version of the HEROES Act, which was a $3 trillion proposal. I was right on the $3 trillion. I couldn't remember if it was much more, but $3 trillion second package. Remember the first one? Back in, April? The CARES Act was $2.2 trillion, I think. So you are talking like $5.2 trillion between those two packages if this second one, the HEROES Act, went through. It was just too big. It was just too bloated. I think the Republicans' package that they countered with was too small, but that's how this goes, negotiating back and forth, especially when you're negotiating with, you've got a difference of $600 billion. Those are some numbers. The scaled-down bill helped serve as a way to appease moderate lawmakers who had pushed Democratic leaders to act on stimulus before lawmakers left to campaign. That was a while ago, and they left, and there was nothing going on. People didn't freak out now, but now they're freaking out because what if Trump doesn't win the election November 3rd? Then what happens with the stimulus 2.0? Don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. So that is really about all I've got on this one. I haven't done a ton of research on kind of where we sit more directly because I wasn't expecting this topic to come up. I thought another couple of weeks we'd have a package together, and it would be kind of a watered down version of what both sides have right now, somewhere in the middle. I thought that would happen, but no, here we are. We didn't have that. So to me, it was disappointing and it was frustrating, but yeah, so is a lot of what goes on, like Eddie Van Halen dying. That's all I got today. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. Love to have you subscribe if you see fit. If not, thanks for joining me today. I will catch up with you on the next one. And as something more comes on this, I'll let you know. I'll maybe do a podcast. I don't know. I don't do a lot of the national political level stuff. I cover mostly Seattle. That's kind of my background. And I feel like a real estate guy, that's kind of probably what he should be covering, because I know Seattle. I don't know the national political scene. I don't know. Just throwing out stuff here. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.